Hi everyone, Scott Owens here with Mimosa Research. Today we're going to do a high-level walkthrough on identifying Colt M45A1 variations. There have been over 20 different variations of the M45A1 that have been released to the commercial market over the last 12 years. And as of June 2024, there's no end in sight to the M45A1 line. With so many variations available, how can a collector quickly identify a rare or unusual variation from something more pedestrian? What makes some variations worth 2, 3, or maybe even 10 times as much as your baseline M45A1? This video will give the collector 5 attributes to look for to quickly categorize any given M45A1. The 5 attributes in descending order of impact to value are roll mark, production, box, finish, and then color. By the end of this video, the collector should have a better idea when viewing an M45A1 if a given value is justified or just plain out of whack. Of course, there are many other factors to consider, but this should provide a decent base of knowledge to build upon. Subscribe to this channel for more videos on military and modern small arms. I plan to release a detailed walkthrough of each M45A1 variation with examples out of my collection. And in future videos, I will discuss the M17 M18 surplus pistols that hit the market a couple of years ago. Hit the notification bell if you'd like to be notified when those videos are available. I'm not going to go into great detail on the history of the M45A1 in service with the military, other than to say it's the last 1911 style pistol entered into military service specifically for the Marine Corps in 2012. Its service life was both short and controversial. It seems like there's still some M45A1s in the hands of Marines. Every once in a while we'll see videos on DVids. Most recently, a year ago or so, we saw M45A1s in the hands of Marine Expeditionary Units. They were training with them. They were looking pretty ratty at that point in time. By and large, the M45A1 has already been phased out of service in favor of initially the Glock and then later the M18. For those of us who collect milsurp firearms, it'll sicken you to know that many M45A1s have been sent to the crusher to recycle into scrap metal. Anyway, on to the attributes in detail. First up in our discussion is going to be roll mark. The roll mark really is the most interesting part of the M45A1 story. During pre-production, roll marks were what one would find on the typical Colt railgun on the left-hand side of the slide. And you can see it just says government model, Colt, automatic caliber 45. By the time the M45A1 had shipped to fulfill the military contract, Colt had developed a new roll mark, which would include 3 stars to honor retired Marine Corps Lieutenant General William M. Keyes, who was president and CEO of Colt at the time, as well as the letters USMC. Here we can see the 3 stars, USMC, and then the word Colt. That roll mark was also included on pistols sold on the commercial market and lasted for about 10 months or so, up until May 1st, 2014. By that point, the Marine Corps asked Colt to stop producing commercially available firearms with what they considered their trademarks, to include the letters USMC. As a result, Colt switched the roll mark for commercially sold pistols, replacing USMC with M45A1. That has remained the primary roll mark for all M45A1 pistols going forward, and instantly created demand for pistols on the commercial market that still exhibited the USMC roll mark. Side note here, the USMC roll mark was still being used on pistols destined for the military contract. This created a handful of instances here and there where a USMC roll mark pistol slipped out of the factory after the deadline passed, sometimes well after. One other consequence of this edict from the Marine Corps is that when Colt took in return decommissioned M45A1 pistols from the Marines in 2017, they could not sell them as is. So Colt reached an agreement where they could still dispose of the pistols so long as they had the existing USMC roll mark crossed off with an X. This is an example of a decommissioned issued pistol. Going forward, there were a handful of instances where the roll mark was neither USMC nor M45, but instead was the standard Colt roll mark. Most common is the Simplify edition, released in early 2017, which I have always called a parts cleanup special. It's not unusual necessarily to find one of those. But what I would argue most interesting is the 2013 Best Ranger prize pistol. That pistol was produced as a prize pistol for the 2013 Best Ranger competition, presented to the two-man Army Ranger team who did best in that competition. Since the M45A1 version of the roll mark wouldn't exist for another year, and the Army didn't want to present their best Rangers with a USMC pistol, they special ordered 2 M45A1s with the old Colt railgun roll mark. The guest of honor for that year's competition was former Secretary of State and retired General Colin Powell. As guest of honor, he presented the prize pistols to the winning team. And in this picture, you can see him discussing the pistols with the winners. By adjusting the gamma on that picture, you can see this roll mark pop out. So in total, we have 4 possible roll marks for the M45A1. Colt railgun, USMC, M45A1, and decommissioned. Next up in our discussion is production. Basically, whether the pistol was produced in the Colt custom shop, on the regular production line, or if it was a prototype or special edition. The first commercially released M45A1s were made in the Colt custom shop, often abbreviated CCS or just shortened to custom shop. At the custom shop, these pistols got a hand-fit barrel and hand-tuned triggers, and they were sold as model O1070CQB. Usually, but not always, custom shop pistols shipped in a Pelican case. We'll show some exceptions to that later when we get to our box segment. There is one really easy way to tell if a pistol came out of the custom shop, and that is by looking for a stamp on the left rear of the trigger guard. If the stamp in that location is a number, or if there is no stamp in that location, then the pistol came out of the custom shop. This is true to this day, regardless of roll mark, box, finish, or color. By 2013, Colt realized they had a hit on their hands. So they started pulling pistols off the regular production line, put them in retail suitable packaging, and sold them as the model O1070 M45. The first pistols sold this way all had the USMC roll mark. But after May 1st, 2014, all regular production line pistols had officially transitioned over to the M45A1 roll mark. The blue plastic clamshell box is what all regular production line pistols came in, although it's important to note that not all pistols shipped in a blue plastic box are regular production line pistols. Another defining characteristic of a regular production line pistol is the stamp at the left rear of the trigger guard, which always appears and is always a letter. Right down there. So primarily, the difference between regular production line and custom shop is letter versus number on the left rear trigger guard. Or at least I should say, a quick way to visually identify the difference between the two. It's important to note that the M45A1 roll mark, regular production line in the blue plastic clamshell box, all FTE in either Cerakote or Decobond finish, is the most common variation seen out on the market. I consider these to be the baseline in terms of value. The one that you see the most often these days is going to be the Decobond M45A1 blue plastic clamshell box. There will be a slight bump in value for a Cerakote version of that, just because they just don't come up that much anymore. Okay, next up in the production discussion are firearms originally produced for the military that actually ended up in the commercial market. The famous DCOM or decommissioned guns. Some notes on the DCOMs. There's two basic splits here. The 533 unissued firearms sat in inventory at armories across the Marine Corps and are generally in pretty good shape, whereas the 467 issued guns were in the hands of Marines, and their condition reflects that. Chips and scratches and the Cerakote finish are par for the course, and many times you'll see holster wear that's rubbed right through the Cerakote, and you'll see large bare patches of the underlying stainless steel on the frames and the slides. Another distinguishing feature of many of the issued guns come in the form of rack marks, paint marks or stickers to include numbers that denote where in the armory they were stored. And on this one, you can see an example of a rack mark, big red 2 painted on the back. Controversial take, and this is just my opinion, but when you look at the numbers, I truly believe that issued DCOMs are this century's singers in terms of 1911s produced for the government. Yes, they were made in large numbers, but there is zero chance that any leftover stock will make it into public hands. And as I alluded to earlier, we know that much of that stock went to the crusher. 467 is it, and that's all there ever will be in public hands. And the unissued is right behind them at 533, with the added benefit of being in really good condition. Issued firearms have a bit of a hierarchy, since in many cases, we know what unit they were assigned to. At the top of the hierarchy are firearms issued to either the Gulf or the Fox companies of Raiders 2nd Marine Battalion. It's confirmed Gulf Company was deployed overseas with their M45A1s, and it's suspected that Fox Company was there as well. Documented Gulf and Fox guns go for huge money. Under that in the hierarchy would be firearms issued to any Raiders associated groups like HHQ or support battalions. Bottom of the hierarchy would be guns sent to Camp Lejeune, the training school commonly called schoolhouse guns. Still, it's a really interesting provenance since they were used to train Raiders and other Marines, but schoolhouse guns or other guns that don't have a proven provenance would represent the best value if you're looking to fill out your collection. This one, by the way, is documented as going to Fox Company. Now that we have covered both regular production line and the decommissioned production, I want to highlight something special that is not well known. The USMC regular production line pistol in the blue plastic clamshell box is the closest thing to the military production pistol that was sent to the Marine Corps. In fact, if we look at this example, we see it actually sits between my issued and my unissued in terms of serial number. I mentioned it before in passing, but it's worth emphasizing here. This pistol was originally destined for military contract. I believe these are overlooked by the collecting community in favor of the custom shop pistols, but to me, this is more interesting. If we look at the stampings on this side of the trigger guard, we have an X. For my unissued, I have an X. And for my issued, I have an A. Flip these around. L. L. And L. This is this without that. In our final entry for the production category is what I will call prototypes and special editions. I'm lumping them all together because there are so few of these pistols made, even though we see a lot of different special editions. Prototypes were either pistols handmade to spec for the Marine Corps, such as this pre-production prototype, or this Decobond finish prototype, whereas special editions were typically regular production line pistols that were designated for specific distributors or internally for employee purchase. Examples of that include these Tallow edition guns. This one was made for sale for veterans organizations to auction off. This one was a Tallow edition, and it was just sold by Tallow. We have these Friends of NRA guns. I'll go into those in more detail in a longer video if you're interested. Since the special editions are all regular production line pistols, we will see letters on the left rear trigger guard and blue clamshell plastic boxes. So in this example, you can see the N on the trigger guard. We'll pick another example. That one is an L. Looks like the finish is a little chipped off there. That happens with Cerakote. A good example of that is this one. This is also an L, but you'll notice the VP up here in the upper corner, verified proof stamp. All Colt pistols have that. Generally, an exception is the M45A1 because they were getting complaints from customers that the finish was chipping. And I think we'll go into that in a different video. Now we come to boxes. There are 4 boxes that M45A1s made an appearance in. Most well known is the Pelican case, and most often associated with custom shop pistols. The Pelican case was shipped from Colt with a custom Colt sticker on the case and custom foam cutouts within. Protecting the case was an outer cardboard shipper and a plastic bag. All standard Pelican fare. Once a case was fitted with a shiny, or in our case, matte, new pistol, that outer cardboard shipper got a label from Colt, and then it was off to the distributors. The Colt label has the model number, a serial number, a barcode for the serial number, and a description which is often correct, but sometimes may not be correct. There's also a UPC code down here, and sometimes you will see a Colt custom shop shield. An important collector note, seems like about 20% of the time, either the distributor, the FFL, or the original purchaser threw away this outer cardboard shipper. If you're looking at a custom shop pistol in a Pelican case, and you don't see this cardboard shipper referenced, it's worth asking about. I've actually had an FFL dig out a cardboard shipper from the trash for me because they didn't realize its importance to collectors. I'll finish the Pelican case discussion with this statement. All Pelican cases contain custom shop guns, but not all custom shop pistols came in a Pelican case. From most well-known to least well-known, the next box a collector may see is the blue custom shop box with a white outer shipper that had the Colt label on it. By the way, under this UPC code, you can kind of start to see the beginnings of the Colt custom shop shield that I was referencing. This box was only seen for one specific variation, the black frame FDE slide Cerakote model with the Novak bar stock ambi safety. The next type of box a collector will see is the blue plastic clamshell mentioned earlier, typically associated with regular production line guns. All regular production line guns came in a blue plastic clamshell box, but not all blue plastic clamshell boxes contained regular production line guns. The final box to discuss is the Craft cardboard box. If you see an M45 in a Craft cardboard box, sit up and pay attention. Something special is within. These were only seen for prototypes and unissued DCOMs. Technically, we could add a 5th style of box, which was shipped without a box. The issued DCOMs were shipped directly from Gunbroker in a USPS flat rate medium box to the receiving FFLs with nothing more than a couple layers of bubble wrap. You can imagine how well that went. Some FFLs got the box with the muzzle poking out of the corner, corners torn off, all kinds of silliness happened as a result of that. Finish is our penultimate attribute. And by finish, I mean the type of coating that was applied to the firearm. Despite recommendations against it, the Marine Corps insisted on a Cerakote finish for the M45A1. Colt produced these guns to the Marine Corps spec, but not long afterwards they started seeing flaking of a finish to a degree that pistols in harsh conditions were exhibiting malfunctions. Colt produced 20 prototypes in a PVD or physical vapor deposition finish called Decobond. Decobond is the brand name for any color of ion bond that isn't black. These prototypes showed that the finish was more durable than Cerakote, and from that point on, Decobond became the primary finish for military contract pistols. Shortly afterwards, the transition occurred both for the regular production line pistols and the Colt custom shop offerings. However, Decobond wasn't the only finish offered from that point forward. Notable exceptions are the gray-black CCS pistols of 2016-ish and the aforementioned Simplify edition. Both of these are in Cerakote. Oh, and one more exception. Raw stainless steel version offered in late 2019, which technically is no coating at all. The last attribute to discuss is color variations. For the first couple of years and up until after the roll mark changed to M45A1, you could have the pistol in any color you wanted, so long as it was FDE. I say FDE, but I really mean baby shit brown. Cerakote color H-199 in desert sand, but I'll continue to simply refer to it as FDE. In 2015, Colt released two variations with black Cerakote frames and FDE slides, starting a tradition of two-tone releases that was mostly seen out of the custom shop, but occasionally was seen from the regular production line too. Two-tone color combos seen were black FDE, FDE black, and gray black. Black Ion Bond came in 2016 and continues to make guest appearances out of the custom shop up until the recording of this video in June 2024. Of course, all FDE Decobond continues, and we did see the raw stainless steel version that came out in 2019. That one hasn't made a return appearance yet.
I wanted to share two resources that I've put together over the years of observing and collecting M45A1s. I'll leave a link to both of these in the description of the video. The first one I wanted to share with you is the spreadsheet that I have kept with every single change on every single variation as I have observed them over time. That resource is freely available for anyone on the internet to reference and use. The next resource I'd like to share is a tab within that same spreadsheet. And these are my thoughts on how each of the attributes that we discussed impact value. So for example, I had mentioned during the video that a M45A1 roll mark in a blue plastic clamshell coming straight off the regular production line in Decobond, all FDE, is the baseline in terms of price. If you were to have something like a Colt custom shop with a USMC roll mark, I think that should trade for somewhere between 2.5 to 3 times whatever the baseline M45A1 is going for. If you had a prototype or special edition, I think that should be trading somewhere between 3.5 to 10 times what a baseline regular production line M45 blue plastic clamshell Decobond all FDE is. I don't think these values are additive in any way, shape, or form. It's hard to represent multi-dimensional factors within a two-dimensional space like this. I did my best to kind of help you represent it. But as you go through and you, as the collector, are looking at a listing, hopefully you can reference something like this to give you an idea of where the value should be for the gun. Let me talk about one specific example where there's a wide range and it makes a difference what the price is. Colt railgun roll mark, regular production line. That could be a Simplify edition parts gun cleanup, in which case I'm assigning it a 0.75 value, or that could be something like the Best Ranger gun. And I think 3X is probably low for Best Ranger, to be honest with you. We have something like a USMC in the blue plastic clamshell. What I see that currently trading at is somewhere between 1.75 and 2X of the baseline value. To be honest with you, I think that should be 3X, maybe 4X, maybe more. I think in many cases, it could be worth as much as a decom, to be honest with you. So those are my thoughts. These are resources to help you, the collector, in evaluating a M45A1 listing, and hopefully that helps you out. Finally, I'd like to point you to a Facebook group that I am involved in. I'm a moderator there. Colt's M45 Custom Shop and USMC Pistols Owners Association. A lot of great information gets posted over there. I do updates on how to identify potential scam auctions, what to look for, what to be on the lookout for. And overall, it's a great resource and a great community. Make sure you are answering the questions that screen you in order to become a member of the group. But if you put in there somewhere, hey, I saw the video, we'd love to see you over there.
So overall, with those 5 attributes in mind, the collector can quickly classify any potential M45A1 listing. The details are important, so pay attention to those. I genuinely hope the collector finds this introduction to the M45A1 both informative and useful. As mentioned earlier, I will be releasing additional videos on the M45A1 in the near future. I hope I've earned your subscription. This is Scott Owens, signing off for Mimosa Research, and thanks for hanging out with me.